We are now in New Iberia, and it's known as the Queen City of Bayou Teche. It's played a crucial role in Louisiana's epic history. Now, this area was populated by members of the Attakapas tribe for several hundred years. The tribe had a decentralized political structure, with individual villages and bands that were operating largely independently of one another. However, they were united in their shared language and culture. The Attakapas called themselves the Ishak, but as we all know, the word Attakapa is actually a Choctaw word meaning man-eater. Now this is still up for debate, however, because we don't know if they were actually cannibals or if it's just a derogatory term used by other native tribes and Europeans in the area once they arrived. From this point, to continue telling the history of New Iberia, we will have to go almost 5,000 miles away. In the southeastern region of Spain, there is a province called Malaga. Rewind the clocks way, way back, like far back to the 6th century BC. The people living in this area had absorbed the Phoenician and Greek cultures. Now, Roman sources like Herodotus and Strabo would refer to these people as Hispani, or more commonly as Iberians. Much later, this term would be used to describe not only people from this specific region, but generally referred to all of the people on the peninsula, regardless of ethnic differences. As a result, this peninsula made up of modern-day Spain and Portugal is referred to as the Iberian Peninsula. Now, let's come back to this location and fast forward to 1779. 500 colonists from Malaga came up Bayou Teche behind me and settled around what became known as Spanish Lake. They were led by Lieutenant Colonel Francisco Bulani and named the settlement Nueva Iberia after their Iberian home. The French would refer to it as Nouvelle Iberie, and always creative, the English called it New Town. As early as 1788, the colony of Iberia numbered about 190 people, the majority of whom were Spanish. But there were the French Acadians fleeing genocide, and many French settlers who came to America under Saint-Denis and Bernard de la Harpe. Few American settlers came until after the Battle of New Orleans, but one of the first was this guy named John Weeks, a wealthy gentleman from Virginia who brought a number of slaves and became a sugar planter. Although sugar is the main cash crop in the area, New Iberia is near an area of the state known as Prairie Olaj. This is a large rolling prairie with natural drainage, and it's ideal for cattle raising. Going further west, you're likely to hear stories of outlaws and bandits from the no man's land territory. This leads some locals to Louisiana to refer to two different types of Cajun people. You have swamp Cajuns and you have prairie Cajuns. From farmland and grazing cattle to sugarcane production, agriculture is a massive industry in New Iberia. So it comes as no surprise that this area was targeted by Union troops in 1863 during the Civil War, establishing a base of operations at the majestic Shadows on the Teche plantation. Thankfully, unlike other cities and towns, New Iberia didn't suffer from a lot of damage. Many of the historic buildings and structures and homes were spared during the war, and they still are intact today. Sugarcane production would continue on after the war, so New Iberia didn't suffer that much economically. However, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, things got even better for this area. Now, it wasn't just a city that was known for its high-quality sugarcane production and trading, but it also managed to step foot into the oil and gas industry. Massive oil and gas reserves were discovered in the area, which brought tons of companies from all over the world. Many historic buildings were renovated and restored during the oil and gas boom in the city. Efforts to preserve New Iberia's cultural heritage have been ongoing for many years, and organizations such as the Shadows on the Teche Historic Estate and the Bayou Teche Museum have worked tirelessly to preserve and promote the city's cultural heritage. The Louisiana Trust for Historic Preservation also highly values New Iberia's cultural heritage and works to preserve historic buildings and landmarks throughout the city. We hope you enjoyed part 1 of this episode of New Iberia. Keep an eye out for part 2. and make a stop in New Iberia and experience Her Majesty on your next Louisiana road trip. And be sure to tell your mama about Louisiana Dread. We couldn't bring you this information without your support on Patreon, and we'd like to thank those who have contributed and encourage anyone watching this video right now to consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Louisiana Dread. For more Louisiana history, horror, folklore, and culture, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Kyle Crosby, and this is Louisiana Dread Quick History.